trading. It's nice to kind of have some soap opera-y things to write about, right?
Oh, it's gold.
It's
and
if
then
you're
for
a writer,
Donaldson,
this is what you want.
And then for Donaldson, well, heck, a writer, a sports talk host, podcast. But for Donaldson, then the day after it all transpired, to basically, I'm sure he said, "I'm doing a Zoom. I'm going on Zoom. I don't care if you approve or not."
With the shirt.
With the shirt, yeah. What, you got something to say or whatever it was? I mean, this is the type of thing that we long for. This is the type of, heck, in a good year, this would be a great little storyline. But you know what I find the most intriguing about this whole thing that goes beyond the Giolito thing, Chipper? I find it really interesting that Donaldson is, as far as I can tell, unless I'm missing another outspoken hitter here, it's a one-man crusade.
Yeah, I haven't seen, not to the level that he's done it.
Like, this takes gall.
And you know, I'm not going to pretend that I've followed every team's market.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
You know, there might be other guys that have kind of quietly done it and not jumped on the stage to the degree that Donaldson has, but he's absolutely been kind of the flag bearer for this thing. And, you know, it's funny that I know some people are mad because he's doing this when they're 13 games out and a terrible team, one of the worst, and they think it's tone deaf. I don't see it that way at all. I felt
crossing home plate and yelling, "It's not sticky" when you're this bad was embarrassing, because his whole thing was, I was trying to pump up my teammates. Dude, your teammates suck.
Yeah. I think he was trying to show them up, is I think what he was doing.
Right. But the mission, like going on Zoom and talking about it, I love this.
Yeah.
And if they were good, show them up.
Oh, could you? Yeah.
Then it's fine.
If they were good, could you imagine this going on? This would be great fodder, you know? But the fact that they're this bad and it's happening, I think people, it turns them off. But I agree with you. You know, let your home run speak to it, you know, and you don't necessarily, but I just think he's a guy who will say anything and does not care. And that rubs people the wrong way. But I always go back to, you know, and yes, you have to put it in the context of how bad they are and kind of have some self-awareness about it. But we want athletes to express and tell us what we rip athletes all the time for being boring. They don't say anything. This is, you know, we get the cliches. Well, this guy's doing the exact opposite. So I'm not going to rip that.
No. And he comes with facts.
Yeah.
His Guillen rip about OPS, he was right.
Yeah.
He studies spin rates. I trust him when he says, and I mean, this is remarkable, Chip, when he says, I have a list, a notepad or a computer of 150 pitchers whose spin rates improved mysteriously from 2017 till now. I buy that. So the fact that this is sort of like a crusade and he's got a platform for it, I appreciate that.
And I'm sure I guarantee you there are players around the league that are saying, I'm going to let him do it. Thank God he's doing it, but I'm going to let him do it. You know, because he's taking all the heat, saying what I feel, but I will let him do it. You know,
100%.
And I will say, the fact that he's a former MVP and he's been in the league and has a certain stature that, you know, he's probably a pretty good, I don't know if spokesperson is the right word, but you know, lead person on this, and so. But he's right. You're right. When you talk to him, he must study this thing all day or all night after games, because he's like, you know, it was down 200 RPMs on the slider and 400 on his fastball, and he's pretty great about explaining the effect of that. He was the other day when he was talking about Giolito, the high fastball, and how when you don't have the spin rate on those, you know, the effect that it has. And so, you know, there's part of me that loves it, part of me that finds it kind of fascinating, just the science part of it. I just wish it was in a season. This was happening when the team is relevant and you're just not kind of checked. Because I got to be honest with you, I'm sort of checked out on.
You're back out?
Yeah,
I remember when you got in.
I'm into summer, man.
I remember when you got in. In 19, you're like, I never used to watch these games. Now I'm watching them. You're out now again. I don't blame you.
I'm sort of not all the way checked out because I have to cover them and still, but they're just. Sometimes they're unwatchable. I gotta be honest. I mean, it's just the same thing. Yeah, a lot of times. it's just the same thing.
They're not good.
They're just terrible.
They're not good. And
They're awful.
I picked them to win 96 games. I don't know what I saw and what's happened. This is, Chip, and I said this to Phil and Dex a couple days ago. This is one of the biggest disappointments and busts in Minnesota sports history, given expectations.
Well, think about all their new arrivals this year and just how they've all backfired, like literally everyone almost. And so I think it wasn't just you, Judd. I think I picked them to win 93 games. And look at the odds maker before the season, Judd. They were one of the top, 7 or 8 teams in terms of odds.
Well, yeah, they're back-to-back division champions that didn't look. I mean, they
looked like they got better on paper.
Yes, and Colomé was supposed to help anchor the bullpen. Like you think about, you're right. Everything that they did backfired, but the Donaldson thing I find intriguing too, because I think you're right. I think there are guys definitely who have strong feelings about this who aren't talking as much, and one is if we could actually go in the locker room and talk to Josh himself more and players. I think it'd be so interesting to do a story on what appears to be an obsession. Like he appears obsessed by this.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I'm sure if you could talk to his teammates, you could delve more into that. The other thing I find intriguing is the Twins, when Donaldson started talking about this, the Twins tried to paint this as, well, he knows his pitchers aren't cheating, so he knows his pitchers stink.
Yeah.
And for the most part, so he doesn't care.
Yeah. Well,
so like this is not a my guy's clean. This is we got Barrios, but after that I don't care.
Yeah, and it's funny because when he had the on the field thing before the Yankee series, and that's when it really kind of came out, when he had the first Zoom, but then they needed to follow up. After calling out Garrett, I asked him, I said, how do you think this is going to play in your clubhouse with your pitchers? And he said, oh, we've already talked about it. I mean, you look at our spin rates, they're not that high. I was like, well, is that because they're not using it? Because they're not that good. Right. So
right.
You can't tell me that people have said 75% of the pitchers, I don't know what the percentage is, that not one in that clubhouse does it. Come on.
Right, but that's what he's not saying, I think, is because here's the thing with Josh that strikes me. And it's baseball, so it's okay. I think Josh is out for Josh first.
Yeah.
So like Josh isn't really worried about and now this doesn't mean he won't help guys and talk to them, but I mean I think Josh says I'm being screwed by pitchers. So I think Josh's thought process, it'd be very interesting to see if the Twins had a staff of pitchers that, let's say, had 3 really good pitchers with good spin rates, if he would be as outspoken and they were good. Like, he has nothing to lose.
Yeah, and well, I think you're seeing the individual aspect of baseball where if you're a hitter and a hitter of his kind of stature and pedigree and you've done it a long time, you're looking out for yourself, right? Because there's money on the line and your reputation and all this, and that's just like a specific thing that you do, a specific skill. And so anything that's going to interfere with it, I don't think you're worried about your setup guy in the bullpen. You don't care.
No.
You're worried about, hey, these guys are affecting.
But I mean, when Jay Happ's, like, let's say Jay Happ, just as an example, let's say he's cheating, okay? Let's say he gets suspended for 10 games. You think Josh, like, oh boy, I shouldn't have said so. No, he's going to be like, I don't care.
Yeah, well, he said it. Hey, I'm trying to get the cheating out of the game. So if that means your own teammate, it means your own teammate.
And I will say this. I saw a story this morning. I think it was from the Associated Press, but the batting average around the league in the month of June shot up 7 points.
Yeah. Well,
so good for him if it's working.
Yeah, and there has to be a correlation. I mean, with all these things, because there's a correlation with why the numbers have tanked with these spin rates, and you see how the spin rates have jumped, and Lord knows he has volumes of data on that, and so now we can debate whether they should have done this mid-season,
right,
and
which I have
disrupted the season to this degree.
Yeah,
but I think we talked maybe last week is baseball hears all the complaints about it's a boring game and there's never balls in play and all these strikeouts, and they probably said we can't go through another half season of this. We have to do something now.
And the sport's not well run.
No. Now, great leadership probably would have done this in January or February and said, we're cracking down. We know this is a problem. You can look at the data. But for whatever reason, they just didn't do anything about it until Sports Illustrated and ESPN and all these national outlets came out with these stories that just said, hey, this is out of control.
They did send out a memo in March saying they were going to monitor it and that they knew the spin rates were up. And then I think what happened was what you just said. Well, first of all, Joe West, who's an idiot, but Joe West busted the Cardinals reliever
correct
for his hat, and he didn't eject him, but he made him change his hat. And Mike Schilt got tossed from that game and then went on that Zoom call after and did like 8 minutes uninterrupted of how this is so widespread. And then the SI story came out, and that's where I think the league said, oh, whoa, we got a problem now.
Yeah, it started with the Cardinals manager when he had that great answer and basically said, just laid it out there. And Donaldson even said that when he saw that kind of compelled him to jump into the mix here.
So Donaldson must have been making this list well before that, though.
Oh, I'm sure. Well,
that's what I'm saying. This is a really interesting obsession.
Yeah, because he said, because I asked him that same day, I said, part of Garrett Cole's thing was this was passed down from generation to generation. He said, yeah, let's talk about that. And he says, in 2017 is when you saw these spin rates really jump up. He said, I think this goes back 3-4 years. So he clearly has been monitoring this for a couple of years and it's been on his mind. And I don't know if he talks about, he said, I have analytics guys. Maybe maybe he's paying somebody to look this stuff up. Maybe he's doing it himself.
But he just didn't start doing it, which means he's been doing this behind the scenes as like a investigation, a Donaldson investigation.
It'd be interesting to find if guys would tell you, like, or if you knew how long guys have been like talking about this during BP and posing players and off season, just like, hey, this is out of control, or probably a couple years, I would guess.
At least, you know what? I just thought of a conspiracy theory here, Chipper.
I love Judd's conspiracy theory.
What?
I missed this.
I just thought of a conspiracy theory here about how the timeline on this went. So the spin rate. So Donaldson said in particular that he started tracking spin rates, the increase of spin rates 2017 onward.
That's when he thinks it started.
Okay.
He thinks it started really.
Hear me out on this, because the game by 2021 had become way too pitching oriented, right?
Correct. Too many strikeouts.
2019, we know for a fact that baseball juiced the ball.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was there without trying to embarrass the pitchers and acknowledge the problem. I wonder if now in retrospect they juiced the ball on purpose because of complaints behind the scenes about the spin rates.
Could be. Yeah, because
they decreased or they unjuiced, if that's a word, the ball, and then it just becomes boring.
Yeah, go back and it would be interesting to go back and look at like 2017, 18 home run totals, strikeouts, all that. If baseball became aware that pitchers are doing this. I mean, they've done it forever, but this, the really sticky
and
stuff.
And it's a bit embarrassing too. Like, it's not something a league wants to be like, hey, we got a problem here.
Well, no, and they clearly try to stick their head in the sand on a lot of this stuff. Mm-hmm. So instead of fixing one area, they said, okay, we'll swing a little of the balance of power back to the hitters, and change these balls and make them like golf balls so they fly off the bat, and then. Pitcher said, okay, if you're going to do that, we're going to get the really sticky stuff.
Right.
That's what you're probably, it's kind of been going, like volleying back and forth. We'll see, we'll see how much this really affects hitting and if it makes the games lead to more action, because people are right. I mean, it just becomes unwatchable with all the strikeouts. It's just home run or strikeout.
Mm-hmm. And they need, this is a start too. But I mean, this is not the answer. Like, they've got to find a way. There has to be more done, and if that means changing things about the game, then they're going to have to. So, and I'm not even saying huge drastic changes, but I mean, if they're going to crack down on shifts and stuff, I'm fine with that. The last night, was it the Dodgers and Nationals are playing, and this is not the first time it's been done before. But I saw a Twitter shot of the field, and against Kyle Schwarber, who's been going great guns for the Nationals, the Dodgers had 4 outfielders. And 3 infielders. And
Beer league softball, is that what?
Yeah, but I mean, you can crack down on that.
Yeah, I mean, what is the one thing that we've heard for like the infield shifts that you have to have 1 foot on the grass or on the dirt?
On the dirt. A minor league is trying it with both feet on the dirt. So basically the second baseman can't drop
It can't be in right field, short right
field. Yes.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind. I think at this point, basically anything should be on the table.
Yes.
There's no dumb ideas, and then you figure out what's realistic, what's not, and then because you're right. I haven't looked at attendance across the league, but or TV ratings, but just anecdotally, that's all you ever hear is like, I can't stand baseball, the product right now, and that's coming from baseball players. Former baseball players are saying that like this game is just hard to watch. It's not even the same game.
Exactly. Hey Dex, so you're 27, correct?
8.
Oh, okay, 8. Yep. You love the sport,
yes,
but you're young as well. Mm-hmm. So like, what would you like to see done? Because I think Chip and I both acknowledge that things need to be done.
Yeah.
But we're really not who baseball's after. It's far more people your age. So what do you think can be done, or what would be going too far, like to you, where you would think that they're spoiling the sport that you love?
I grew up loving this sport. It's a hard sport to sell to other people who are my age. Like I feel like it's one of those things, if you didn't grow up playing Little League and watching baseball, it's hard to get into it. Like basketball right now, like if you didn't watch basketball and you stumbled into basketball, you could be all in right now in the last few years. You really could. Mm-hmm. Even the last 4 or 5 with Steph and everyone, where baseball, it's so hard because number one, I don't feel like they do a good job marketing their stars. Like Mookie Betts is obviously a stud. Mike Trout's great, but he's still super boring and no one wants to ever talk about him. Tim Anderson, there's a bunch of these great flaring baseball players that you can totally get behind and market, but at the end of the day, they don't. And it's really, really frustrating. The games are incredibly long. I'm someone where I'm not a purist with baseball, so if they want to make these wacky rules with extra innings, like I'm okay with that. I really wish I had like a special sauce and a wave of magic wand that I can get baseball back to where it is. But like if you're someone who's in your mid or early 20s and you're trying to discover baseball, I don't really know what to tell you. Like it's a tough pill to swallow.
Declan, how much do you think, too, it is a generational thing? Because in just the way kids are raised now, and I'm thinking, this is just top of my head, the attention span of my kids is like 3 seconds.
Right.
They're on their, sometimes we'll watch a movie, and literally like 3 minutes into it, they're on their phone. They're Snapchatting or they're doing it.
My wife does that, Chip.
Yeah, it's like they cannot.
Yeah.
If you said, hey, let's sit down and watch a 3-hour Twins game,
yep,
they wouldn't make it a minute without looking at their phone, doing, Snapchat on their phone, playing a game, watching, I always hear them over there. They got the ESPN highlights of the NBA, coming. So it's like, I just think it might be just the nature of the game and how it's slow, methodical, and there's not much happening. And kids nowadays are just like have ants in their pants. They can't sit still for 5 seconds and pay attention to anything.
Yeah. Like even with phones and upping TikTok and whatnot, TikTok is obviously the new thing, like that is great for watching highlights. They do baseball does some of that stuff on TikTok where they show a big home run or they'll, make it an exaggerated little video to get your attention span in. But it's such a slow, dry game that most teenagers and most young kids aren't going to sit there and, like you said, let alone watch a 3-hour movie. They're not going to watch a 3-hour baseball game either.
No. Now, my kids they like going to the game.
Yeah.
They like being in the atmosphere and the stand and kind of just.
Yeah.
But if you said we'll go to the game every night, they probably would. If you said we're going to watch, go once a summer and watch them on TV, they would have zero interest in that, like zero. And so I think it is part of just the way people in this generation is wired and the way they function now, and you have a game that just has no action. I think that's probably why you see so many teenagers that in the NBA is constant action, right?
Yes.
It keeps your attention.
And superstars.
Yeah.
And star players, yeah. I think the thing baseball has to fix first before it can market its stars, as Declan said, to a degree to get people to care a lot, is to fix the game itself, though. So, like, I don't think if they started to do a great job with Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout, Anderson, Tatis, who is phenomenal, But they don't change the game, and it still is, time of game 3:15.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people are going to gravitate back to, oh my God, they're doing a great job with the Stars, so I have to. So I think they need to find ways to fix the game, and unfortunately, I think some of those fixes are going to be fairly drastic.
Yeah, radical. Yeah,
but I mean, but it's better than the game.
But are you fixing it? Are you chasing something you're never going to get by doing that?
I think you have to take some chances.
Yeah,
I just think you do. I mean, you can't have Chip when we're gone. I mean, there's going to be a generation that replaces us that's going to be like, well, I just didn't care that much.
Yep.
So,
although I will say this, my 18-year-old threw me for a loop the other day. He said, I wish Ohtani played for the Twins so we could watch him. So that's that's a big step for the fact that he even knew Ohtani.
And you said cheap pull ads.
I know. That's right.
You're like, cheap pull ads.
That's right.
Ohtani is, to me, a really interesting story this spring and summer as well on this. And I said this to Phil and Dex a couple days ago as well, Chipper. Can you imagine if this was 25 years ago and Ohtani was
oh my gosh
doing this? Now, I'm not saying it's not a big deal now.
Is it as big as it should be what he's doing?
No, hell no.
That's what I'm sitting there thinking. It's like,
in the summer of '98, Fox was interrupting games for the home run race on the interrupting shows or like showing Cardinals games on the big Fox.
Yeah. I mean,
So no,
2 decades ago, it would be gigantic. It would be, but you do wonder, like, if the average, even baseball fan has a real appreciation of what this guy's doing, just how unique and historic this is.
I think the answer is no, Declan.
Yeah, it's no.
I just think it's not.
It sucks. I love baseball, and I think that's what's so frustrating about this Twins team. It's one thing if they were fighting for 500 and they just were scrapping by here and there. Like, yeah, it'd be a disappointment, but just how bad they've been this year, and with baseball being basically in the gutter, like it's the worst, especially from a Twins fan side. It is the worst case scenario that's happening right now because baseball's literally on life support.
And I think baseball is such a regional sport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How do you make it a national sport?
Well, that's where I think you have to work on the game.
Yeah.
I think you have to work on the game before you can even start to talk about, a guy like Tatis or Ohtani being must-see TV like an NBA player is. Baseball right now reminds me of what the NHL was, let's say, in the late 80s. It reminds me it's a really regional game where if your team's good, it's a lot of fun.
You just follow your team.
Yep. But I mean, it's also done everything it can in some ways to de-emphasize itself without realizing, like, in my opinion, Rob Manfred was hired to do one thing: orchestrate the lockout that we're going to see. Because he doesn't do anything that's good for the game itself.
Yeah.
And he doesn't seem to care or understand the game.
Or like it.
Which is, and I mean, keep in mind, when Bettman got the job in, what was that, 92-ish or so, he came from the NBA, and he was another guy who was there to get the business of that sport in order.
Yeah.
Didn't really have a lot of care about the game at that time. So it's just, and look, a lockout, I don't know what it's going to do, but I know it's going to be a huge problem.
If you think people are tuning out now.
Right.
But I mean, here's the problem. Right now, if they went out right now, hardcores like us would be pissed off. But if they went out right now, the average person wouldn't care. In 94, it caused passion and anger.
And we're seeing it now with the with the Bally's and the TV thing going on. We had a story the other day, I think is Mike Rand did your podcast, that people have just found other.
Yep.
I remember doing a column. I talked to Dave St. Peter before the season. It's like, oh my gosh, what are people going to do? They're going to have to, they're going to have to bite the bullet and if they cut the cord, they're going to have to put it back together so they can get the Twins. Well, people just said, forget that. I'll move on and do something else. And obviously, when you have one of the worst teams in baseball, it makes it a lot easier. If they had the best team in baseball, we might have, a different conversation here. People would say, hey, I got to watch him. But yeah, people just realize, you know what? There's more to life. There's more to summer than sitting down and watching a baseball game.
Hell yeah. And when your team's bad, you really don't give a damn. Like, it's, they're not appointment TV by any means now. And Chip, you nailed it. A lot of these games are unwatchable.
Yeah.
Like, this team is unwatchable at times.